Hey guys, so we in the last video created our first API server, right? Our JSON server that is going to serve a piece of API to us. So now we have to use it. We're gonna actually create our first GET request for what is going to be the initial state, the initial step of the CRUD system. Okay, so every full REST application, REST, full REST application, will have a CRUD system where you basically create, remove, update, and delete. No, wait a minute. Remove and delete, that's the same thing. Create, I always get confused with what those things are. I'll be honest with you, I am not CRUD operations, let's go. I am not good with, there we go. Create, read, update, and delete. All right, I'm not good with acronyms. I've always been that kind of guy that if I know how to do something, I just know how to do something. But sometimes, and I'm good at explaining it, obviously, right? I mean, I hope. But as far as like knowing like this little fine details, I mean, CRUD, okay? I know what it is. I know what it does. Everybody in the industry knows what a CRUD system is and what it does and what it's for. I just don't waste time really learning this particular name for each letter in the acronym. I just, maybe I should. And please, I'm not telling you not to. Don't be like me. Not on that. All right, so we're gonna create our first stage of the CRUD system, which is to be GET, right? Every time you start a CRUD system on any application you're starting to run, you're starting to develop, the first thing you always want to take care of is the GET request part, right? You can delete or update unless you get it first, unless you read it, right? So let's do it. So now that we have our DB.json here, let's just close this and let's close this data because we're eventually not gonna need it anymore. Actually, we're not even gonna need this DB.json anymore either. We're gonna go straight to the services and gonna open that service right there, and we're gonna do some changes in here now because we are going to make sure that we get these tasks that we have not from our data right here, not from this place anymore. Now it's going to be coming from an actual from the API endpoint, from this API endpoint right here. It's going to read from there. But before I do any of that, it'll behoove you to have the Angular DevTools included in your system, in your browser. So if you're using Chrome, this is how you do it. I think they have it for Firefox as well, but I would just do it for Chrome. I would just use Chrome because that's what I'm using, and it's easier for us to have the same thing. So just look for in the Chrome Web Store, or you can just search for this. Just search for Angular DevTools. Let's see, just like this, like Angular DevTools Chrome. Okay, so search for that, and then you'll come to this link right here where you'll click it, and then obviously I already have it, so just put add to Chrome or whatever it says, add to Chrome extensions, whatever, and go ahead and do that. Once you do that, I don't know if it'll tell you to restart your application or not in your browser, but you should see something up here. Make sure that you click on it and that you have it working, right? That is, you turn it on basically. And then once you do that, then come back over here and refresh that, and make sure that if you have anything, any console, any DevTools that is closed, so go ahead and close it, and then so close it and then restart this, right? And then go ahead and inspect anywhere, and then you should see this tab over here that says Angular. So once you click on that, it will give you basically the breakdown of every component inside of your application. So as you can see, this is the cool thing about this, that it tells you actually the component that you're using. So we're using the root component, right, which is the main one, and then we're using a header component, which we call the main header, and then we're using the home component, which is inside pages folder. In fact, you can see it, that is inside, well, you can see it now, but it's in there. And then inside there, we're injecting that page title component, which here it is, that one. And then if you look at some of the stuff in there, it even tells you all of the props that we created a prop for the button text called add, and one for the title, and this one the value is home. And then we have a button click that right now I think we didn't have anything done to it yet. It's just sitting there, but it is available to us. And then we have this tasks component, which is this entire block, and then each one, and if you click on one of them, it will tell you the actual data for that particular task item. Okay, so this is all really wired up, reading your entire Angular framework. So this is really cool to have, and you'll need this so that you can eventually, once we start working on the data and changing data and things like that, you can see it changing in here. Now, why is that important to check for this if we can see it here? Well, sometimes if you're not doing things correctly, you could change things on the front end, giving the appearance that you actually changed it, but you never really changed it in the data, and that's a problem. So let's say, for example, I toggle this to off, to on, right? There is a change in the front end, which is basically changing the icon, but there is another change besides just changing the icon, which is changing the value property of the icon from false to true, right? If I change the icon but the false to true doesn't change, then all I did was just basically mess around with the front end, but the back end data is still going to be the same. So that's a problem. Now this right here will tell you if it's true, or if it's false, it will tell you, if it changed thing here. So this is always good to have, especially when you're dealing with APIs. That's why I didn't show this before, because it was irrelevant. So if you're never going to work with APIs, you're never going to need this. But once you start working with APIs, you want to make sure that you can check your data through that to see the changes. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and close this. Well, not yet. Right now, this data right here, it doesn't tell you what it's coming from, but it's coming from, basically, we know that it's coming from, let's go close it actually. We know that it's coming from our task right here and from here. So we're gonna change this, right? So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna just get rid of that, and we're gonna do, well, before we actually do that, let me just put it back, sorry. Let's just put it back so it doesn't break. Let's just keep it there. Before we do that, we have to bring in our HTTP client. So we're going to import HTTP client, like so. And this actually, for some reason, is not being imported automatically, so we're gonna do that. And this is gonna come from Angular common, yes, Angular common HTTP. There you go. It's gonna come from there. Okay. And another thing we're going to need from there is going to be the headers. So HTTP, there's the headers down there. There you go. So make sure that it's capitalized on HTTP, okay? A lot of people tend to not capitalize it, and then they get errors. Now for this to be used fully, like right now, is you're making a call to the actual component inside of this this package that Angular contains, but the module is not available to us yet. So there's one more change you need to do, and you need to go to the actual modules right here, and then let's go ahead and save, copy that, and then up here underneath these two modules, we're gonna add another module. We don't need the header here, and then add module at the end of that. So like this, HTTP client module, and it's gonna come from the same place, HTTP. So we're gonna copy that, and then in the imports here, comma, and make sure that it's imported. Hit save. Now it is fully available to us. We can close that. Doesn't need that anymore. Oh, it might need to be, okay. So we have to stop and reserve it, and then the HTTP modules basically will recompile, and everything will be fine. So just give it a second while it recompiles. Take a cup of coffee and take a sip. Okay, there you go. All right, we're good to go. Refresh, make sure it works. Cool. All right, so we have it available, we're ready to use it, but we're not really using it yet because we're still pulling from tasks, right? So we're gonna go ahead and get rid of this right now. And first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna actually create a private reference key or reference variable, and we're going to reference that to our address right here where our API lives. All right, I'm gonna put that in there. Now you're probably thinking, okay, so why do we do this? All right, so imagine you have a bunch of get tasks, a bunch of getters, a bunch of get requests. One is going to be for tasks, the other one is going to be for users, the other one is going to be for services, etc., 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 right? You want to make sure that you use that you use something like this, like API, because you never know where your API address is going to come from. And if you have to change it, like if, say for example, if something crashed in the server and the backend developer said, hey, guess what, we're not serving our API from 3004 anymore, we're now serving it from 3006, right? So now you have to go change this in a bunch of different places. So, but if you have it in one place, then it would just change from that one place only. So what we're going to do for that to happen is we're going to serve our API only from 3004 right here, right? The root. This is our API root. Okay, and then now we're going to start creating our API call. Basically, first we need to introduce our service, our HTTP module here as HTTP client. All right, there we go. So now we're referencing this HTTP client in here. Now we can use it. So in the get task, we are still calling for an observable. So that part doesn't change. That part's fine. But what we're going to do is we're going to return this HTTP right there. And then now we can make our get request. So we're going to make a get request. And then inside the get request, we are going to call this API and plus / tasks. All right, so now you're thinking, what's going on with this right here? The reason why is because you're calling this get API of type task, but you're typecasting it, but you're not calling it in the format that it should come. So it's basically the exact same thing that you're typecasting. You're going to do that get request in the same manner. So again, let me go back to this right here and what this means here, right? Why did we do it like this, right? And why not, for example, why not this? Okay, this will work the exact same way. But the problem with this is, let's say for example you have a bunch of tasks. Let's say you have a bunch of gets, right? And this one is going to be called get users, and this one is going to be called get services, and each one of them are, this one is going to be called, this one is calling from a users, which it doesn't exist, and this one is calling a services, and then this one is now called users API and services API, right? Let's say something like this exists. Let me make sure that I am correctly incorrect. Correctly incorrect, because services doesn't really exist, neither does users, right? But let's say you have something like this, right? And you're hard coding the API string in here. So like I said, now the API place, this place changed, okay? Now you have a problem. This hardly ever will change. The endpoint will hardly ever change. But this could change, could potentially change. So now you got to change it in 3 different places. And it looks like it's fine because, okay, 3 different places, they're close together. Sometimes these files are really long, and sometimes there's more than 3. Sometimes, depending who you work for, it could be 20, 40, 100 places that you're making different calls. So in order to change it, to make it easier for you to maintain, it will be easier to just call it from one place. So to do that, we create an API or API URL or API root. Actually, I like that. Call it API root variable to save the root of the API, and then I can reference it in here and then make all those calls that you saw call the API root plus whatever endpoint you're calling. So if you're calling now, if we go back to what we had before, imagine this one was users and this one was services. All you had to do was just say users and services, and then now again back to this example, the server-side developer or whoever said, hey, we're gonna change our localhost root, API root from 3004 to 3006. It changed, it got moved. No problem. You don't have to change it in all of these places and find where else did you put it. All you have to do is just change it in this one place, and everything will work everywhere else. So let's go ahead and get rid of all this not working code, and I'm gonna go ahead and hit we don't need this task data anymore, so I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna hit enter, and nothing should change because everything now is coming directly from our get. And if you see the server that we have run here is telling you that it created a get request, 3 get requests for this, well, 3 get requests because we did that 3 times, but it created this get request to these tasks right here, and that's why they're coming in. All right, so if we go back to and inspect here, and we go back to Angular and see our task item, then it still shows all the information. And if we look at the network tab, and make a refresh so I can actually call, you should see here, if you click on it, you should see there's a 200 goal, a 200 status code, which means it's a good request. And there's a get request, and in the response you should see what is coming back, which is the exact thing that you have in the JSON server, is your API piece. So it works. So I can close that, and we'll leave the HTTP headers for later because we're gonna use that. But just to make sure that we're not bringing crap from anywhere else, I'm going to delete this file now because we don't need it. All right, and let's make sure. I see some red down here, but I don't think that has nothing to do with that. That's just thing misbehaving. And let's save this, and yep, everything else is working. Everything's perfect. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.